Hi guys, sorry for the late submission. Life has just been really hectic and crazy, and yeah, this one got sick, so set me back a little bit. But onto the assignment. Learning to read came very easily to me, and I know that's not the story with most, but I enjoyed it. My mom used to read to me as a child, and she was reading me chapter books before I was in kindergarten. My imagination would go wild, and just every element about the books. I loved reading ones with pictures where I could use my imagination and go along with the story. And if you've never read a choose your own adventure book, let me just say you need to read one. If you don't enjoy reading, read a choose your own adventure and then tell me you don't like to read anymore because that is just amazing. When it says if you choose to go left, turn to page 57. If you choose to go right, turn to page 113. There's something about just building your own adventure that helps the imagination grow. And that is something that I would like to offer my students based on my experience. I'd love to introduce them to Choose Your Own Adventure books. I'd love to introduce them to learning to love reading because there's so many different elements that you can go after. If they're into cars this week and dinosaurs next week, who says we can't read both? Let's do both. I want them to choose things that they are interested in, that they like to, you know, that they already have a desire to learn about. I want to run with that. I want to show them that there is a book for everybody, that they can find things for them, even if they think they don't like to read, even if they're intimidated by reading. There is a level and there is a topic for everybody. Um, that being said, recently I read Me, Abuela, and Mango by Meg Medina. And it is a children's book. I was looking for texts for my first grade class I'll be teaching very shortly here, actually. And my area is heavily Hispanic, and I have Hispanic heritage. So for me, that's a very easy connection point. Picking a book with representation for the vast majority of the class, but also a book that has representation for other cultures, which it does include. And the plot is basically Mia, the main character, her abuelita or her grandmother, lives in a different country and she has gotten to the age where she can no longer live on her own. Her grandma passed away and the parents have said, hey, it's time for abuelita to live with us. The problem is abuelita doesn't speak English and Mia doesn't speak Spanish. And for any Spanish speaker, I guarantee you, not even Spanish speaker, for anybody who has come into contact with either a Spanish speaker, speaks Spanish themselves, or has family that speaks Spanish, it's extremely relatable because they have to learn how to communicate with each other without either one of them fully understanding. And they end up, Mia finds this parrot at the pet store and decides to name him Mango because her abuelita used to have parrots that lived in the mango trees outside her house back in her home country. And it reminded her of her grandpa that she never got to meet. And to me, that was a beautiful concept. You know, she's relating to her grandma through something, even if it's not through words yet. So she brings home this parrot named Mango, and the bird learns English and Spanish along with Mia and Abuelita. And by the end of the book, Mia is understanding a lot more Spanish, and Abuelita is understanding a lot more English and able to communicate with the neighbors. And they don't have to rely so heavily on a third party to translate for them anymore because they've decided they want to learn to communicate with each other. And I think that's great. Uh, I enjoyed it again because it's so relatable. It doesn't even have to be Spanish. It can be any language. It can be the fact that you have a friend that speaks Spanish and you don't. So when they speak it, you don't understand. It's just relatable even if it's not you personally. Um, for vocabulary, I like this book because it does have English and Spanish vocabulary words. And me looking at teaching dual immersion, English and Spanish, that's very important because for me, my goal is not just to get the Spanish speakers to speak English more fluently, but it's to get the English native speakers to learn a little bit of Spanish. We can meet each other halfway. Um, I think that's really important because almost every other country in the world speaks another language, and not us. And I think we're starting to head in that direction, and I think that's a very cool concept. And I am all for it, and I wanted to choose a book that embraced that. And as far as comprehension instruction, it's the same thing. Since there's English and Spanish, there's challenging words in both. I mean, the word abuelita itself, it's in the name of the book. Students have to learn what that means. It means grandma. So there's going to be both languages, and there's going to be plenty of concepts the students can relate on in both languages. So for strategies to focus on, for me, would be the sounding things out, especially for the Spanish words. Spanish is said as it is spelled. It is not like English where you have silent letters. You don't do that. It says mano, you say M-A-N-O, mano, and that's it. It's very clear. For the English comprehension, I would actually like to compare and contrast how the languages are different and what types of similarities they have. They have a very similar alphabet, both Latin based, and I think that going towards that and finding common roots for certain words would be helpful to the class as well. So that is my video discussion for this week. Sorry it ran a little bit over, and sorry this one's being a little fussy, but thank you guys. Have a good week.